The presidential race is just over a week away, and the candidates appear to remain in a dead heat. Both are focusing on battleground states that could decide the race. Joining us to discuss is political science professor Brian Gaines with the University of Illinois. Thanks for being with us.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. Just a week from Tuesday, a week from tomorrow is the big day. Let's talk about what's been happening leading up to this right now. It seems to be forefront and center today is that rally that President Trump held in New York on Sunday. It's caused a lot of controversy. And among other things, he talked about massive deportation to reverse what he called an immigrant invasion. And then there were those racist insults made, including from a comedian talking about Puerto Rico. Let's listen to some sound from that, and I want to get your reaction.
I don't know if you guys know this, but there's literally a floating island of garbage in the middle of the ocean right now. Yeah, I think it's called Puerto Rico.
So the Trump administration is now separating itself from those comments. Can this hurt him in this election? You know, they talk about October surprise. Is this damaging?
I've given up on making strong predictions about which things will hurt Trump. I think he's sailed through a lot of controversy, and usually we expect, if there's a controversy, he's the source of it. To have one of his supporters making the mistake is a little different, but he seems to have an incredible capacity to skirt past controversy, so I'm not sure it will really hurt.
We just finished talking about the Middle East and Ukraine, giving updates on those situations, which only seem to be getting worse in both areas. There are now reports 10,000 North Korean troops in Russia are headed for Ukraine. Talk about how important what's happening overseas is to this election.
Yeah, I've been saying this since the primary season, that the campaigns are controlling everything they can, but they have very little, if any, control over foreign policy. It's not obvious who it helps. In some respect, Harris is campaigning as the incumbent. She's not the incumbent president, but next best thing is the vice president. And the more that there's a mess in the world, I think the more likely it is the blame will fall on her. So I think it probably slightly helps Trump, but it also distracts some people who might end up not even voting if it's a big enough distraction. So I'm not really certain about who gains or loses, but you know, the one thing is for sure, it's something they can't control. They're trying desperately to control everything they can, and events that are outside the borders can still end up having a big shadow.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. Let's talk about messaging. Trump's has been about the economy. It's been about immigration. Harris also talking about the economy, but also women's rights. What do we know about the importance of these specific issues with American voters, and how important is the messaging from each candidate this late in the game?
Both of these candidates have done a lot of focus groups. I think the Democrats probably even more. They do a lot of experiments. They try really hard to figure out the exact secret sauce. What's the formula of messages, a combination of positive and negative, that seems to win over the swing voters? I think Donald Trump is a little bit less disciplined about staying on message. Even if he's got campaign advisors telling him exactly what to say, he doesn't necessarily follow through. But on the other hand, I think the sort of received wisdom in political science would be, when it's a tie late, the late breakers tend not to go for the incumbent. And again, Harris is not exactly the incumbent, but I think if you're going to latch onto something that would suggest the Democrats are scrambling here, it's probably that being tied this late, if people have had a chance to think through how they like these two, is probably not where she wanted to be. And it's maybe a reason for Republicans to be a little bit more optimistic.
All right, Professor Gaines, thanks for helping us gain some insight into the final week of campaigning.
Anytime.
Okay, take care.